Hello everyone, welcome back to the DBJ channel. I want to do something a little bit differently. It's going to be YOS summarized, where I summarize all YOS anomalies that I currently have. Now you may think that this looks kind of similar. It's like SCP Summarize, made by SCP Illustrated. Well, he's now Mr. Illustrated now. And he's stopped doing it since then. So I thought this would probably be a great time to do this, except for YOS anomalies. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Here are the object classes. You may pause the video and read all of them, because you're going to see them much often, although some of them you're not going to see often. Regardless, let's start. YOS-000, Bullet Stabber, an unidentified entity that resembles a bullet. It is sentient and extremely hostile. It would do every attempt to stab and kill anyone it sees. YOS-000 can be stopped by physical electrical forces. YOS-001. At the time of the making of this video, there are currently 22 YOS-001 proposals. As time goes on, there could be added. Codename Dr. Joey, Freezer Toad, an unknown being composed of water and ice. It can manipulate any type of solid and liquid matter and turn it into its own kind. If the entity is seeing something that poses a danger near it, it will immediately freeze their body until a lack of movement. Codename Caesar, Inconvenience, a work pod that when a person steps into it, will be transported to an alternate reality resembling the same as ours, except that an unknown figure will distract the subject once exiting the work pod, making the subject inconvenient. Codename Cine, a dark future, a dark rogue planet that seems to be slowly approaching the solar system. It takes an unknown dark mass with it that seems to come off of the planet's surface itself. It is thought that this mass continues to grow and will reach the Earth in about 1.5 million years from now, resulting in the destruction of the planet. Codename Agent Toadette, Rex Mucus, a two-legged male specimen of Felis catus, capable of basic speech. It often claims that he is the coolest cat in the world. When a certain aggressor attempts to attack the cat, it will attack first and often says, "It's Rex time." Codename Dr. Christian, the Yushi Guardian, a colossal reptilian being that currently resides within the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It is constantly blocking the entrance of a gate that looks like the Garden of Eden, but filled with multiple reptile specimens. When the subject comes within 4 meters of the being and the gate, the being causes the effect of the subject to leave by using Forget, or by simply slashing them with its burning sword with a temperature similar to the sun. Codename Agent Natalie, Metal Box, a rectangular structure composed of metal. It seems to show signs of sentience and has the ability to transport to any location on Earth. It has a small mouth at the bottom of the object, in which case it only feeds on plants, though it mostly prefers to eat grass. The object can cause wavelengths that causes other objects nearby to be composed of metal, though this effect doesn't seem to affect it. Codename Professor Richard, under construction. An undisclosed location that has signs of construction going on. It is unknown what year it was planned on. Currently, a smaller portion of the building was made, while silver structures are present. Entering the location will result in immediate electrocution to the subject. Codename Zero, successful containment. An abandoned research facility. When an object who shows anomalous properties come within 100 meters of it, will be transported to an empty containment chamber. It is not known if the building is sentient. Codename Professor Derek, Ink Colossus, a large, colossal being that remains in an alternate version of the universe. It has an undisclosed location that summons the being by using various items laying on a black pentagram. Once this is completed, the subject may see some lines to lure it over here. Once they do, the building will start to become destroyed until the entity has fully emerged. It seems to have an immense hatred for all life forms, and will become hostile upon observing a single organism. The entity is capable of controlling weather patterns and manipulates lightning strikes to directly strike at the target organism. Its summoning location is currently being secured by multiple security members and will terminate anyone who attempts to enter the building. Codename Agent Damien, the Angel, a female humanoid that remains floating above the clouds, claiming to be the protector of angels. It is passive to any life form it comes across. If it feels like it's being threatened by a single organism, it will immediately attack and kill the organism by extreme brightness and radiation. Codename Agent Harold, Minion God, a bright god that ascends about 12 miles off the ground. If the entity is suddenly being attacked by an aggressor, its brightness will significantly increase and will immediately leisure the entity. Codename Dr. Arnold, Scarlet Demon, an extra-dimensional being that exists in multiple realities, but has been attempting to enter this observable universe for hundreds of years, due to the immense hatred of all life from it. It is constantly surrounded and changed to prevent entry. Codename Professor Franklin. This is where the day ends. An event that occurs approximately 2,000 years from now. 200 years from now, I meant. The sun will constantly disappear from long periods of time, and all of life will slowly freeze and die off from severe frostbite and hypothermia. Due to the nature of the event, it is impossible to contain. Codename Lily, the Multiverse. It is believed that by the Foundation that there is other empty spaces out there outside of ours, although this has never been confirmed. Dr. Matthew drew an artistic representation of the theory, shows stars floating in many empty circular spaces. After this has been believed, there is an unknown light shining brighter than the other stars, and it seems to get brighter as time goes on. Codename Professor Bruce, the Devil, a 10-meter tall humanoid demon-like entity that inhabits a large underground cavern, which is constantly inflicted with flames. Anyone who enters the area will make the entity react quickly and release flames to the target. After the victim is killed, it will bring them to the flames and melt off the skin, leaving the blood and bones intact. If successful, the skeleton will become animated. These killings led to the creation of SCP-534. Codename Dr. Larry, Snowball, a sentient specimen of the species Florida white rabbit. It wears blue clothing and has the ability to fly. It often claims to be a hero and will kill anything it sees as a threat. Codename Dr. John, the Rexian Plush, a sentient doll resembling an anthropomorphic female white cat. When a subject comes into physical contact with it, there were reports about its fur being rough and hard. After 3 minutes of physical exposure, the doll will absorb the victim to its mass, and the victim will not be seen. Codename Professor Belina, the Haunted House, a 3-story house in a state of disrepair. It is inhabited by approximately 327 residents. They are aggressive and sadistic towards subjects upon gaining direct contact with them. Exiting the house is often impossible, as the door is periodically appearing and disappearing to any open space of the house. Codename Edward, Radioactive Nebula, a large molecular cloud that contains large amounts of radiation in its inner layer. Periodically, it will release large amounts of radiation around its surrounding area. Anything that is exposed to the radiation will immediately get their structure burnt away. Codename Professor Thomas, the Space King, a large god living in the outer reaches of space. If it feels like a presence of an organism out of a planet, it will quickly attack them and incorporate them into its body mass, significantly increasing in size. Codename Kyle, the Owner, a humanoid being called Jim, is a reality bender currently the mascot of the company Jims. It creates multiple anomalous projects that are later given YOS status. It is currently self-contained and thus doesn't require resources to be contained. Codename Leo, the Powerful Girl, a young Caucasian female in her mid-20s. She has the ability to levitate and manipulate matter nearby and use energy to make beams. It is currently unknown how she gained these properties, but researchers believe she gained these in the early 1990s. YOS-002. Ouija, a large humanoid entity wearing green and blue clothing. At any time it gets slightly disturbed, it will become aggressive towards them and will kill them with any move. It is capable of speech, though it often chooses not to communicate when it's disturbed. Although it's quick conversational with YOS-810 and YOS-7448. YOS-003, Angry Koopa, a rare reptilian-like entity that becomes aggressive and attacks when the subject nearby. It is only hostile during daytime hours, but will become dormant during night hours. YOS-004, the Wrong Cereal, a bowl filled with cereal resembling Reese's Puffs. Whenever a subject consumes most of YOS-004, they will experience life-threatening injuries inside their body. Subjects will likely report this being really painful and will rarely commit suicide on occasions. YOS-004's properties can be caused by sudden low temperatures. YOS-005, Aggressive Sword, a colorful sword measuring 4 meters tall. If a subject becomes into possession of it, they will become aggressive and immediately attack other human subjects by a single slash. YOS-005 has a limited activation, which whether it activates or deactivates. When activated, it will gain its properties. When deactivated, it will cease all properties for a few hours. YOS-006, Protective Mask, a white face mask that prevents a human subject from getting any diseases. YOS-007, Bad God Damien. YOS-007 is a demonic humanoid being with bleeding black eyes. Its skin has a darker tone and possesses rotten teeth. It is very hostile towards any life form and will often choose to play a game with them, or will immediately kill them. It has the ability to speak and has been saying life-threatening things. YOS-008, Scene Master. YOS-008 consists of 4 components. 0081 is a white scene taker with a random text on top of the bottom text. 008-2 is a humanoid entity that can take control of any component and also possesses the ability to speak. 008A is a large white sheet of paper that can take control of the subject. And 008B is a Sony Pro camera that records the subject, and 008A is controlled by 0082. When a subject comes in contact with these instances, they will immediately become subject to their scene. YOS-009, Robo the Robot, a sentient AI that takes on a cone shape. It resembles a white mechanic robot with one single eye that shoots out lasers. It has X-ray vision and manipulates the laser to directly hit the presumed aggressor. YOS-010, Cesaro the Cutter, a sentient pair of lame scissors. It seems to be passive to researchers and other human beings. It has the ability to cut through all types of matter. YOS-011, Ice Ball. YOS-011 is a 2-meter spherical ice ball fused onto a flat circular of wood. Anyone that comes into contact with it will be transported into Dimension 011 within it. The dimension was a cold landscape of unknown proximity. A large mechanical object will seek out an intruder and go under and blast them with its beam, and the subject is transported back into the other dimension. YOS-012, Top Hat Male. YOS-012 is a humanoid entity living within a box. It will often be inside the box within and come out in an aggressive state. The box's top will fuse to its head and will hit nearby its victims with its hands or its top. YOS-013, Alice Hermes. YOS-013 is a colorful humanoid female, presumed to be 20 years old. She has multiple superhuman abilities and plasma effects to use in self-defense, and it claims to have gotten it from a field. YOS-014, Flying Carpet. YOS-014 is an ancient red carpet presumed to be in the Middle Ages. It has the ability to levitate midair. It can only float above 15 meters high. YOS-015, The Living Shoes. YOS-015 consists of 10 pairs of sentient shoes from different brands. Specimens are passive to other living creatures, unless provoked or attacked. It lets human beings wear them if their feet are hot or cold. YOS-016, One-Kissed Woman. YOS-016 is a black and white humanoid female. Her lips are lethal, and if she attempts to kiss a victim, they will immediately seize all organs and die. YOS-017, Shadow Devil. YOS-017 is a small, darkened humanoid creature with horns. It is almost the size of a human child and is enveloped in the dark smoke. Anytime it detects that a shadow is present, it will immediately attack and consume them, leaving no trace of the item. YOS-018, the Sink Fountain. YOS-018 is a fountain that resembles a sink. It releases tap water and will heal any damaged parts that the consumers have sustained. YOS-019, Crayola Pool. YOS-019 is a 10-meter spherical hole constantly filled with millions of Crayola crayons. A person coming into physical contact with the crayons will report feeling them like a liquid. If the subject enters the pool fully, they will be devoid of any injuries they've gained. YOS-020, Plain Stealth Controller. YOS-020 is a cordless black Xbox One controller. It has the ability to move the buttons on its own accord and play different video games without a single lose. YOS-021, Werewolf Emoji. YOS-021 is a yellow humanoid entity that possesses an oval-shaped head with a face somewhat reminiscent of an emoji. It behaves like the wolf and is hostile to any living thing. It will use its claws to kill its victims for a short period of time. YOS-022, Stick Guy, an animate stick figure that has the ability to phase into the real world. It is friendly to everyone, but will defend itself if a hostile entity attempts to attack. YOS-023, Aggressive Crowd. 2 components. 023-1 is an abandoned town located somewhere in Alabama, and 023-2 are a horde of regular human beings that is extremely hostile towards everybody and will directly kill the victim with the acquired weapons. YOS-024, Mask Monster. YOS-024 are humanoid entities that appear to be counterparts to humans. They have exterior devilish faces placed on their interior face and proceed to breed their young. They will unleash their predatory nature and kill the subject for consumption. YOS-025, the Dark Basement. YOS-025 is a basement located in an abandoned home somewhere in Minnesota. A tall humanoid entity resides within the basement and will make eye contact with it when it spots them. Subject who enters said basement and interacts with the entity shows signs of paranoia. YOS-026, the Death Book. YOS-026 is a journal with the title Death Note. The object appears to be sentient and will write the names of any nearby subject within a 20-meter distance. The subject will immediately die when their name is written. YOS-027, Orange Vision. YOS-027 is an orange magnifying glass. When a subject holds and views through YOS-027, they will perceive a group of intangible humanoid figures covered entirely in orange, and the figures will come into full view when the subject takes away YOS-027 from their viewing range. The figures are completely friendly, except if the subject attempts to destroy the object in question. YOS-028, the Living Toys. YOS-028 is a blue box of various toys. A single toy will become animate, and they are friendly towards any living creature. But if the subject attacks a live toy, 028-2 will appear and take away the toy box and assault the attacker if they got too close. YOS-029, Apple. YOS-029 is a humanoid female with shiny red skin and has an apple for a head with a face resembling a woman's. She is rather friendly and communicative, but will mostly stay silent. YOS-029 can make any apple she comes into contact with give out a regenerative ability to the subject when consumed. YOS-030, Bobo, a tiny humanoid that possesses high speed and can lift up any large object despite its small size. YOS-031, Paper of Terror. YOS-031 is a single-line piece of paper, and it often shows an animated drawing of multiple cartoonishly drawn humanoids of creepy appearance. If the subject touches the paper, they will be forced into the paper itself and turned into a hand-drawn version of themselves. 031-2 instances will notice the trapped subject and attempt to kill them. YOS-032, Car of Death. YOS-032 is a group of motor-controlled toy cars with a man sitting on each of them. They appear to be sentient and very hostile, as they will attempt to run over and kill any nearby subject despite their size, but they will release sharp implements from themselves to deal some harm. YOS-033, Ice Human. YOS-033 is a humanoid composed of frozen water and liquid nitrogen. It is mostly hostile and will inflict the subject with extremely low temperatures by releasing either liquid or gas. YOS-034, Unminion. YOS-034 is a cylindrical creature with dark eyes. It is hostile towards anyone, and for some reason continuously said, "Pain is nowhere." YOS-035, Fire Human. A humanoid composed entirely of extremely hot flames. It can be stunned for long periods of time below temperatures in water, but is hostile and will fight back by releasing just the flames towards the subject. YOS-036, Overpowered Human. Overpowered Woman. YOS-036 is a woman that has high strength and speed. She is rather hostile and rarely seems to remain friendly. She always keeps a large silver sword on her person at all times and may use it to kill subjects. YOS-037, a punching bag. YOS-037 is a white punching bag. It is sentient and autonomous, but will mostly stay stationary. If a subject punches it, however, YOS-037 will move on its own accord and attempt to attack the person who punched it. YOS-038, Sanitizer Killer. YOS-038 is a large bottle of Puro brand hand sanitizer. The sanitizer is not ordinary and is secretly an unknown strong acid, meaning that if the subject pours the sanitizer onto their hands, the acid will eat through the subject. YOS-039, Glitching Ball. YOS-039 is a ball whose surface is constantly shifting and twitching. When the subject touches the ball's surface, it will affect the subject's body and slowly remove all parts of the subject's body, effectively deleting them from existence. YOS-040, Possessing Spider Mask. YOS-040 is a mask resembling a dark Spider-Man mask. When that subject puts on the mask, their brain will immediately stop functioning within 5 seconds of putting it on. YOS-040 would then take control of the subject and is hostile towards living subjects. YOS-041, Hungry Devil. YOS-041 is a colorful horned humanoid entity who is constantly starving. It requires a lot of calories and will sometimes eat living subjects. Despite its desire, it will always remain constantly hungry, and his weight gain will continue to grow. YOS-042, Creepy Crawling Devils. YOS-042 is an unknown species of arthropods. They hunt their prey by scaling their walls and getting on top of their prey to consume them. YOS-043, Joy of Death. YOS-043 is a cylindrical-shaped living creature that is constantly smiling. When a living human is not showing signs of smiling, it will become hostile and assault their body until they're paralyzed. After that, it will make eye contact with them, which causes the subject to laugh and kill themselves with various methods. YOS-044, Unnamed Hedgehog. YOS-044 is a bipedal blue creature with 6 large-shaped sharp quills. It mostly stands motionless for short periods of time and is hostile to any living thing. The entity constantly says, "Who I am is not important." YOS-045, Inked People. YOS-045 are a group of humanoids covered in ink. They are hostile and seem to attack and turn the subject into themselves. YOS-046, Giant Punk. YOS-046 is a large humanoid wearing red clothing. It remains mostly docile, but it will turn hostile if provoked. YOS-047, Ice Spreader. YOS-047 is a large crystal that induces extreme pain into the subject who touches it. The subject's body temperature will lower down, and it leads to their death when not treated. YOS-048, Virus Plague. YOS-048 is an undiscovered virus. When humans are infected with the virus, their body will significantly become damaged and bruised. YOS-048 seemed to cause this, but how it was able to inflict damage onto the infected is unknown. YOS-049, Creeping Killer. YOS-049 is a green, vaguely humanoid entity with 4 legs and hollow eyes. It will mostly follow nearby subjects for extended periods of time before coming towards them and killing them. YOS-050, Mecha Zombie. YOS-050 is a humanoid with various mechanical parts around its body. It uses these to emit tons of radioactive gas and shoots balls of electricity towards its targets. YOS-051, Honey Feasting Bee. YOS-051 is a member of Honeybee that seeks out other honey made by other insects. It can change its size, it can make the honey more fresh and edible. YOS-051 will always remain friendly, regardless if the subject attempts to harm it. YOS-052, Corpse of a Cow. YOS-052 is a corpse of a bovine. It reanimates at random periods of time and doesn't seem to decompose. YOS-053, Young Piggy. YOS-053 is a small female bipedal pig, presumably 3 years old, and wearing a yellow dress. When a human makes eye contact or physical contact with her, or remains around her for 5 minutes, will show paranoia and show homicidal tendencies. If they attempt to kill YOS-053, they will suffer a fatal heart attack. YOS-053 can regenerate herself with ease and appears ignorant of her effects towards humans. YOS-054, Wool Suffocator. YOS-054 is a sheep whose wool is sentient and hostile when a living subject comes nearby. The wool will stretch to grip the subject and press them onto itself to suffocate them. The sheep does not show distress when the subject suffocates, as it remains ignorant of it. It is unknown if its wool is keeping it from responding. YOS-055, Night Snow Wolf. YOS-055 is a wolf that remains docile during the day. At night, however, it will become hostile and attempt to kill and devour humans only. YOS-056, Computer of Faces. YOS-056 is a large picture of creepy faces found in Google Images. When viewing the image, the subject will grow paranoid and will experience hallucinations of the faces. The subject will eventually die from an unknown method. YOS-057, Borker. YOS-057 is a canine humanoid that causes effects on people when it says "bork." After it says this multiple times, the subject explodes and the entity will become docile for hours. YOS-058, Giant Two-Legged Turtle. YOS-058 is a tall reptilian humanoid that remains stationary for long periods of time. It will break out of the state if a living subject comes nearby and kill them in the process. YOS-059, Victimized Cat. YOS-059 is a house cat that seems to be targeted continuously by any animal and plant on a planet, with the exception of humans. Plants will often mutate and animate themselves to attack the cat with their produced sharp teeth, and animals will continuously search for the cat when within a 30-meter distance. YOS-060, Bovine Fungus. YOS-060 is the fungus resembling a white-spotted mushroom. It releases spores that only affects bovines and will cause them to turn red and produce the fungus for their backs. This doesn't seem to cause pain or distress to the cows. They will produce more spores and attempt to find more cows to infect. YOS-061, Digging Rabbit. YOS-061 is a small rabbit that has a strong desire to bury itself 15 meters deep into the dirt. It does this in order to consume digging annelids and plant seeds. YOS-061 continues to grow exponentially when it consumes these two items. YOS-062, Super Jumping Llama. YOS-062 is a llama capable of jumping at high distances. It jumps quite a lot due to it having the urge to jump. This foundation has to make a 30-meter chamber in order to not let it injure itself, or make it jump on a trampoline to make it think it's jumping and never attempt to jump on its own. YOS-063, The Alternate Horse. YOS-063 is an equine and can run at long distances with high speed and has very strong reflexes. YOS-064, First Person Entity. YOS-064 is an invisible entity that often breaks security equipment and hijacks footage of it in a first-person point of view. the Foundation uses this to know where it is, and are luckily able to carry it into containment. YOS-065. YOS-065 is a donkey that has human-level intelligence. It is capable of speaking and often claims to be Albert Einstein. YOS-066. The Shy Wolf, a humanoid canine that kills anyone who looks at it, and has telekinetic abilities to disrupt its containment and kill subjects. YOS-067. Here's School. YOS-067 is a phenomenon that occurs in American cities, taking the form of a school with the name Here's School. Various humanoid entities reside there, and the humanoid wearing a green shirt will become hostile when the subject who entered the school gets a math question wrong. YOS-068. Hellish Mule. YOS-068 is a mule that has an extremely high temperature and emits flames when it is provoked. YOS-069. Orange Manor Mammal. YOS-069 is a bipedal mammalian specimen that seems to manipulate objects and entities, and makes projectiles of energy and hate in an orange hue. YOS-070. Closet Monster Nose. YOS-070 is an entity that periodically appears inside closets when it is closed. It will make noise by banging on the closet door to convince the subject to come inside, if the person is actually present near the closet. If successful, it will kill the subject before getting rid of any trace of them. YOS-071. Overpowered Spider. YOS-071-1 is a blue pair of glasses that induces a strong repulsion to anyone within a 100-meter distance, and compel them to put the glasses on. After this, the effect dissolves, and a black and blue arachnid standing on two black back legs will approach and attempt to kill and devour the subject. If the subject manages to briefly escape it. 071-2 will shoot blue projectiles at them until they are killed or incapacitated. YOS-072. Fire Hedgehog. YOS-072 is a mammal with a high body temperature. It is hostile and will shoot balls of flames to kill and burn the subject. YOS-073. Alternate Elf. YOS-073 is a humanoid emitting a purple hue. It remains passive unless provoked, which will lead it to kill the subject by shooting purple glowing projectiles and manipulate objects to crush them. YOS-074. Zombified Horse. YOS-074 is an inanimate corpse of an equine, which, when docile, it moves at a low speed in a jerky manner. When hostile, it moves at high speed despite the rotting parts of its body, and will kill and devour the subject. YOS-075. Evil Acid Monster. YOS-075 is a tall humanoid who's leaking an unknown acid from itself, which eats through very easily except for the entity itself. YOS-075 is hostile, and will usually disappear from the ground and rise near the subject. It will then kill the subject and cause the subject to be eaten by the strong acid. YOS-076. An abandoned boathouse. YOS-076 is a boathouse in the Lake of Kansas. When inside, the boathouse will randomly sink, and the subject's lower half will be changed to a long tail similar to a mermaid. The door of the boathouse will open, allowing water to flood it, and the subject will grow gills when coming into contact with the water. YOS-076 will remove the water from an unknown means when rising to the surface. YOS-077. Bad God Joey. YOS-077 is a humanoid entity that looks like a shadow. It is extremely hostile to any living being, and will strike them once with its claws before allowing them to slowly bleed to death. YOS-078. Closet to the Dark Side. YOS-078 is a large closet with brown curtains. When entered, the subject will be transported to a dark dimension where hostile entities resembling large teddy bears will locate and kill them. YOS-079. Mirror Man. YOS-079 is a middle-aged man who reflects any source of light. When reflected, it emits a bright light in the subject's direction. YOS-080. Big Jaw Panda. YOS-080 is a giant panda that can open its jaw to abnormal lengths. Instead of relying on just Eating bamboo. It eats a variety of fruits, including entire watermelons. YOS-081, mind-controlling pyramids. YOS-081 are large pyramids in Egypt that seem to be able to affect the minds of nearby people. It will make the person build another duplicate of itself with the assistance of groups of colorless Egyptian humans. YOS-082, autistic psychopath. YOS-082 is a pale bipedal reptile with red eyes. When it spots a living being, it will enter a rage state and attempt to kill the subject. It will possess high strength if it cannot kill the subject immediately. YOS-083, semi-werewolf. YOS-083 is an emaciated humanoid entity possessing predatory instincts. It will stalk the nearest human being before eventually killing it for a specific amount of time. YOS-084, magic fox. YOS-084 is a red fox capable of duplicating itself, entering into small cramped spaces, decreasing its size, and making living subjects disappear. YOS-085, rotating stuffed globe. YOS-085 is a large globe that is able to rotate on its own continuously, usually at slow speed when no humans are present, but it will rotate faster when in the presence of humans. It seems to possess some level of intelligence, as it can tell where a single person originated from on the Earth by locating the place where they were born, and it will emit a red light from an unknown source titling the person's original location at birth. YOS-086, super igloo. YOS-086 is an igloo of colorful appearance. When inside, it will release a sweet smell and liquid from its walls, and is able to transport to any location on Earth without melting. It will mostly levitate in the air with the subject's side. YOS-087, Warland. YOS-087 is an archipelago somewhere in the Northern Atlantic Ocean. It seems to be inhabited by people who died during World War I and II. They seem to be firing at one another and will rarely pay attention to any person who enters the island. YOS-088, Shrunken Solar System. YOS-088 is a device resembling the solar system. It seems to be animate in the planet's orbit around the sun continuously. This rotation changes every 2 days. In one day, the planet orbits around the sun at the same speed as the actual planets orbit around it, like Mercury completed orbit in 88 days, and Earth completing 365 days in a single year. But the next day, all of the planets will orbit around faster instead of normal orbital periods. YOS-089, Suffocator Box. YOS-089 is a large glass full of US coins. When a subject attempts to grab the US coins, they will be forcibly shoved into the coins and remove the oxygen from inside, leading to the subject's death due to suffocation. YOS-090, Money Protectors. YOS-091 is a box full of US currency, which is guarded by 2 humanoid robots. When a subject attempts to take the box, YOS-092 entities will protect it by aggressively attacking or shoving them. YOS-091, the Wetter. YOS-091 is a levitating dark 3-headed skeleton missing its lower part of its structure. It is hostile and shoots projectiles of its own heads to kill the subjects and the surroundings. They explode when they make contact with living subjects or run ahead in the ground. YOS-092, Sentient Boat. YOS-092 is a living organism that resembles a large boat. It is friendly and it's often cautious around its surroundings, as it actively trying not to collide with any island. YOS-093, the Anything Hat. YOS-093 is a hat that gives the wearer anything they could have by speaking about the object that they desire. YOS-094, the Deer Giraffes. YOS-094 is a tall, unknown species of mammal that seems to be a hybrid between a species of deer and a giraffe. They give off an unpleasant scent that spreads within a 50-meter radius, possibly to deter predators. YOS-094 is friendly and rarely seem to get startled. YOS-095, Flying Hot Air Balloon. YOS-095 is a sentient hot air balloon that floats horizontally at high speed, similar to a flying bird. YOS-096, the Shy Devil. YOS-096 is a horned humanoid entity that goes into a rage state when viewing its face. It seems to sense the location of the viewer and will will find them and kill them, and also leaving no traces behind. YOS-097, Trapping Lock. YOS-097 is a lock that, when placed on a doorknob, will lock the door on its own accord, trapping the subject inside and making the door impossible to open. YOS-098, J.O. Devil. YOS-098 is a colorful, horned humanoid entity that is capable of levitation and producing a large circular projectile of flashing colors. YOS-098 is often friendly, but will attack if it is attacked first. YOS-099, Glitching Koopa. YOS-099 is a living entity resembling a bipedal reptile, but seems to be covered in glitching patterns. YOS-099 is often very hostile and will shoot a large ball of glitching particles that causes the subject to glitch out and feel pain. YOS-099 is capable of removing the subject entirely when using its glitching effect, but making physical contact to do this. And that is it for YOS Summarize 000 to 099. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you like and all that. Anyways, the next one, 100 to 199, will be coming very soon, if you give me enough time, so be patient please. So, see you in the next video. Goodbye.